Welcome to Your Life Podcast, the place where life becomes that little bit simpler. Welcome to the Your Life Podcast. I'm Angela Lockwood, and in this episode, I am really excited to be speaking with Janine Shepherd. Janine and I go a long way back. In fact, I first came across Janine when I was only 17 years old. I was in hospital recovering from a head injury where I had sustained quite significant injuries, and I was in rehab in hospital at the time when my sister gave me a book called Never Tell Me Never. Now, at the time, it was pretty hard for me to be able to read because my eyes were blurry. It was hard for me to concentrate. It was sometimes even just hard for me to stay awake. But when I was given Never Tell Me Never, immediately I could feel shifts in the way that I was starting to see my recovery. Why? Because Janine's story about her own adversity that she had faced when she was training for Calgary Winter Olympics. She was riding on a bike through the mountains in New South Wales when a truck driver struck her from behind. Her injuries were so significant that she was told she would never survive. But if she did, with some miracle, she would certainly never be able to walk. But in true Janine Shepherd spirit, she certainly walked again. And in fact, she went on to fly. Your story has to be told, Janine. She didn't go on just to fly in planes. She went on to teach. She became an aerobatics pilot. But her story isn't just a story about survival, overcoming adversity. Her whole life story is one of inspiration, of always overcoming challenges, of looking forward, of thinking optimistically. So here I am, so many years down the track, being able to share a conversation with a woman who I always have equated to being the one significant factor that helped me overcome such horrific injuries myself and helped me shape the path and the direction of my life. So it is my absolute honour to bring my conversation to you with Janine Shepherd. Enjoy. Janine Shepherd, welcome to the Your Life Podcast.
Thank you for having me. So far away, but so close.
I know, I can't believe you're on the other side of the world right now in a beautiful little cabin in Wyoming. How lucky.
Oh, it's wonderful. Surrounded by bears and moose. No people.
Yeah, no people, just bears and moose. Well, I'm surrounded by chickens and sheep. So I love that, that's the other side of the world, but we've got similar lives.
Wildlife, sort of. I don't know if you call that wildlife, but anyway.
I think I'd rather a sheep than a bear.
Oh, me too.
Now, can you believe that we first met 23 years ago when your life was being honoured on the This Is Your Life show? Can you believe that?
Worst night of my life.
Why? Why was it the worst night?
Well, because I really don't like that show. It was like, I didn't want all that attention. And I remember saying at the time to my husband then, I'll never be on that show, but if I'm ever on that show, don't you ever let me, I was sort of joking. And of course, when it happened, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm on that show. But it seemed really sort of slightly embarrassing. And I feel, of course, it's an honor in that sense, but I was pregnant and sick. So it was a tough night. And then I look out in the audience and all my friends are there, people that I'd only seen days and a week earlier, and no one had told me. So I thought, what is going on? I have to
admit, I've always wondered, everyone looks really surprised. And are you really surprised, or do you have a little...
Oh, yes. Oh, no, you have no idea. In fact, I have a code name for you. Mine was Little Bo Peep, I think it was. That was like the code name for my show. And, if you find out, they can it.
Oh, so this is the other thing I thought that was a little bit interesting. You had already been through so much, and I can see why your life would be honoured, but you were so young. I almost feel like you could have another This Is Your Life moment now.
Don't you dare. Don't you ever put that out there in the universe. No, it's a really slightly uncomfortable experience, I have to say. To be honest, it's very odd.
Okay,
I mean,
so
it was
tell
great
me.
that, look, no, it's great that we met through that and other people there, and that was great. But I think being, 7 or 8 months pregnant, and having the flu, not COVID, the flu, I wasn't well. And so it was tough. That was a tough night.
So, why would people put a pregnant woman with young children who is
I
not well
know.
on national TV?
How
Why?
cruel.
What was it about your life story that made it, okay to do
As
that?
I don't know. It was very cruel. I'm never going to forgive those people. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I don't know. I think, my story just really hit a nerve with a lot of people. And I wrote my first book, Never Tell Me Never, and I thought, I wonder if anyone will read this book. And of course, hundreds of thousands of copies later and emails. I mean, it changed my life. And I think people just really resonate with real stories. And I think that's what
Look,
my story was.
I certainly did. And you just mentioned your book, Never Tell Me Never. And those people that know my story know that I often refer to Never Tell Me Never as a book that literally changed my life. And it was a book that
That's
I
so
was
sweet.
given, in hospital.
Yeah.
And there was something about your story that I looked at and I thought, never tell me never. That's what I needed to hear right now. So what was it about your story that you feel that has resonated so deeply with people, that the tenacity, the grit, but also the gentleness that you showed through not just Never Tell Me Never, but all your writings? What is it about your story you think that really inspires people?
I think it's simply that people see their own story in my story. Even with my, I've written 6 books. My latest one, Defiant, which we'll talk about that a bit later. But that I think it's honest. I think there's something in it that everyone can connect with. And I mean, if you take a snippet of, for example, my TED Talk, which has had an enormous amount of views, I think people are drawn to a story that somehow they see their own life reflected in it. So they can sort of go, yeah, I get that. I've been there. And, I've never been, as a speaker on stage, I've never been someone who says, rah, 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 life is this and life is easy and you can do anything. My message is, life is tough, life is hard. But if you can accept that, then it's not hard anymore, that it's sort of lean into the hills, lean into the struggles. They're there to teach us something. So I think that I'm a mirror, that's simply it. I think I hold up a mirror, whether I'm on stage or in my books, and people see some part of their life reflected in that.
And of course, around the time you were an elite athlete, you were going to the Calgary Winter Olympics. You were the epitome of health and well-being and achievement. So to have all of that taken from you by something that was really out of your control, a lot of people would find sometimes that story in itself going, wow, if she can do it, then my problems really seem quite little. Do you ever have that feedback from people?
I've had, the feedback has been overwhelming. And of course, it's been such a huge part of my recovery, sort of writing my story and, all the people that have written to me over the years and still continue to do so, took me out of my small story and into a sort of a bigger human story. And it helped me to realize that, we're not on this journey alone. And I truly believe that we're all living one story, just different variations of it. It's the one story of, the classic hero's journey per Joseph Campbell. And they're sort of repeating patterns through life. And once we see that, then we can go through life with much more ease and peace.
I love that. And I love there's a quote that I've heard you say before. And if you don't mind, I'm going to say it back to you. And I'd love to know how you knew this. So you once said, it's not until we let go of the life we think we should have that we find the life that is waiting for us. Now, what do you mean by this, and what events led you to know this?
Well, I think we hold on to things, and you only learn through experience. It's, you sort of try something, it's a feedback loop, and you figure out whether it works. And, when I got home from hospital after my accident, paralyzed in a wheelchair, in catheter, and my old life was over, it was so incredibly painful. I didn't want to be there anymore. And I sort of got to this point where the pain was so great that the only alternative was to let go. And it was in that letting go that, my eyes were open to another way of being in the world. And of course, that's when all the possibilities opened up to me, like, well, if I can't walk, I'll fly, and that whole journey of being a pilot. And of course, flying is such a wonderful metaphor for life and freedom. So in the letting go, I realized that, wow, this is a process that I've used so often in my life through other struggles, that we can hold. The more we hold on, and the tighter we hold on to the way we think our life is supposed to be, the more we suffer. So we need to, tread gently, hold things in a very gentle embrace, because we don't know what's waiting for us. We don't know what we're capable of. We don't know, so I think life is inviting us all the time to experience new things. And that's all life is. Life is a series of experiences.
And do you think that sometimes the busyness of our lives and being so on all the time can actually shut us off from some of those invitations that the universe sends us?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, you know that better than anyone. And I think that's a, very relevant message right now, because, one of the struggles people are having now is, life has been so busy, and it's almost as if the universe has said, well, I'm just going to press the pause button and we're all going to take a breather, and it's very uncomfortable.
I really hope that out of all of this struggle that we're all facing right now, that we do learn some of those ways of how we can step back and how we can embrace those really simple things in our life and make the most of it. And I think, Janine, you're somebody who, it's not just the story of your accident, of when, you had so much taken from you from your body point of view, but I am so fascinated in, no matter how many interviews I hear that you share, or even your TED Talk, as you mentioned, which very humbly said a few people have watched, millions of people have watched it. It really is an inspiring story in itself. But how do we disassociate, or should we disassociate ourselves from our body to our mind, or do they have to both work together to overcome these challenges?
Great question. Well, from someone who thought that I was my body, and of course the original title of my TED Talk was "You're Not Your Body." That's how I sort of defined myself. I thought that was my strength. I think it doesn't matter whether it's a body we're talking about, or any other skill or talent that we have in life. It's really, how are we putting ourselves out there? How are we defining ourselves? I mean, we see it over and over again with, celebrities and actors who are beautiful people, and when they lose their beauty, they experience a great shattering of their image in the world. It happens to athletes, when their career is over and they, ask that question, well, if I'm not that, then who am I? So I think it really doesn't matter what it is. It's whatever we think defines us. If we hold that too tightly, we're on a very slippery slope.
Now, you said once upon a time, and I feel like I'm throwing everything back at you, but everything you say seems to be, it makes you question your life, or it's so deep, that you had a death experience around the time of your injury, and you don't call it a near-death experience. It was a death experience, as I had, as you know. Did you make a conscious choice to come back? And why, if you did, why did you?
Yeah, I did make a conscious choice. And well, at first I was very angry with coming back. I was very confused. Why am I back? This body's broken. It can no longer serve me. So it was pretty clear to me now why I came back. It's because this was an incredible opportunity. This was the greatest thing that I could lose that would wake me up to who I was, truly who I was. And as someone who just thought that they were their body as an elite athlete, and that's how I put myself forward in the world. That was my identity. That was the one thing that I had to lose to really wake up.
So how does somebody who is so focused on goals and outcomes, which many of us are taught from a young age, that it's all about achievement, getting the best grades, being in the best team, how much does surrendering have to play in this, in achieving what we want out of life? Is it always about going hard and fast, or is there an element of just going to, I don't have the answers, I need some help?
Bit of both, really, I think. I mean, I'm still very, I'm Janine the machine. I'm still, driven towards my goals, but just not so much the outcome. Like, I very much enjoy the process. And, I know from experience that life, there's no guarantees in life. You don't always get what you want, but you always get what you need. And that's a really distinct, difference there. And so, of course, we need goals. Of course, we need things to, I mean, I've been writing about this today. I'm just putting the finishing touches on a course that I've created on resilience. And one of those is the hope theory, C.R. Snyder's hope theory, goals, pathways, and agencies. And also, part of the course is about values and strengths. And I think they're important. It's important to have goals, but what's really important is to know what our core values are and to be able to align our goals with our values so that, when we live a values-driven life rather than a goals-driven life, we're never really disappointed, or not for very long anyway, because we can always live a life according to our values. The goals are never guaranteed.
And I can see in social media nowadays too that the life that often is portrayed to all of us is ideal. It's easy. It looks like, you roll out of bed in the morning and you look like a model. Well, Janine, I don't know about you, but I don't look like that when I get out of bed in the morning.
Nobody does. And I think people know that. I think people really know that it's, all smoke and mirrors, particularly, Instagram and things like that. And I think there's a balance between that too, a balance between being really authentic and also, on the other side, sometimes it's gone the other way. And I see people that write constantly about depression and, I find it, that's really sort of depressing. So there's a balance between being honest about how you are and also being optimistic, because, there's a great advantage to positivity in life, and we need a certain amount of that to be able to, just to meet our goals and to live a life and to create well-being and to be hopeful. So positive emotions and positivity are really, really important, but that doesn't mean you have to be a Pollyanna.
Because that can also be hiding some of the truth, can't it? When you're pretending to be positive, it's sometimes a little bit easier to then not address some of the challenges that you're facing.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to be, it took me a long time to be really honest with a lot of my emotions, because I'm always, pick myself up and get on with it, which actually has a lot to do with how I did recover. So being accepting of my inner world as well as the outer world, not just the circumstances, but my emotions, has been really important in my life. So I say, it's important to have a good cry, to do all those things. Just don't stay there. That's all. Just don't get stuck there.
Yeah, I'm loving with the situation that we're in right now across the globe, seeing on social media, which I try not to do too often, but people starting to show photos of them or just real moments of where, hey, I'm actually struggling a little bit. And it's not all about we're all in this struggle together, but yet I can still look picture perfect and my life is still wonderful. And it's just also off social media, people seem to be having really honest conversations about what they're dealing with at the moment. Is that honesty really important for people when they're faced with a challenge, and having those people and those supports that they can be honest with?
Well, it's always, I think it's obviously important to be honest, and it's having a great support team is important too, and I think that's a great thing that's coming out. Whoever's got shares in Zoom is doing really well right now because everyone's on Zoom, and it's amazing. We're all connecting, we're all realizing that we're not in this, we're not alone in this journey, that we're all in this together, and there's sort of a sense of, I feel it anyway, a sense of calm. I'm amazed at how people are handling the challenge. That's not to take away from the incredible pain and suffering in the world, because we forget, living in affluent societies, that there are people that are really struggling right now, and that my heart goes out to them, to people living in poverty, for women living in domestic violence situations. They're the real victims out of all of this, and I think we need to focus on that. I think this is going going to make us a much kinder world and compassionate, I hope.
Mm. And do other people's stories inspire you then, Janine? Like, can we learn a lot from listening to other people's stories, or is there a sense of we are in this together, so let's learn from each other?
Oh yeah, I think absolutely we learn from each other's stories. That's been a really, important part of my recovery. And I think when we go through things, and I think this is part of the, sort of the entitlement of life shouldn't be like this. If we're ever along those lines that this shouldn't be happening to me, we know that it's a pretty clear sign that we are exhibiting some sort of form of entitlement. And the entitlement kills joy. And I always say, well, if someone says this shouldn't be happening, and I say, well, actually, it should, because it is. So that's the first thing, right? It is. And so if you can get to that point of acceptance, then that's the first step to, changing your life. To be able to say, this is where I am, this is happening, so now what? And that's a really great next step. So now what? So yeah, back to the question, I guess storytelling and sharing our stories. Whenever you hear someone else's story, you sort of takes you out of your small story, and you think, right, I'm not alone. And I think there's hope in that, hope in knowing that other people are also not just going through it, but other people have survived what you're going through.
And for those people that are listening, you've written 6 books. People should really go and buy all 6. Don't just buy one. There's not one that you can choose over the others. Really interestingly, one of your books that had another profound impact on me was probably the one that people know least about, and that is The Gift of Acceptance.
I'm so glad you said that. That's my favorite little book. I love that book. And it's just, there's a story behind that too. It's a book of aphorisms and just things that I've learned along the way. And I love it. I love that little book. And I want to add to that. I've got double the amount of aphorisms to add to that book. So I will, the plan is to republish that one day. But first, I've got, for anyone that hasn't read any of my books, I would say start with my latest one, which is Defiant, because it really brings people up to date with where my story is now. And I haven't even told you this. So Defiant has been optioned in Hollywood, and we're making it into a movie. It's so exciting.
Can I ask who the lead is? Because I know the beautiful Claudia Carvin was you.
Yeah.
Never Tell Me Never when you're.
I know.
On the big
so that's silly. Well, that wasn't that. I mean, that was a Australian telly movie, I guess. And but so I've always had this idea. Well, no, I didn't always have this idea. But when I moved to America, that was prompted by an email that I got from a man in India who wrote to me and said, I've had an ailment for 17 years and I was considering suicide. And I saw your talk and my life starts now. And, that my life at that point, I'd been through a divorce, single parenting, I'd lost my house. And I thought, what now? And I think I just thought, okay, universe, I get it. Okay, you want me to move. I'm going to take my story out into the big wide world. And then, I thought, America, and that sort of prompted the move here. And from my TED Talk a couple of years ago, 3 really big Hollywood producers picked up my story, which is super exciting. And we're just about to sign on an A-list screenwriter, which I'm really excited about. So still a long way. Hollywood movies take a long time. Patience.
And so imagine what you can achieve between now and then. When it comes out, they'll have to do a second edition for you.
I know, that's so funny. It's so funny, but it's going to be great. I mean, there's so much more. The difference between my first and my latest book, between Never Tell Me Never and Defiant, is Never Tell Me Never, which, has been, I mean, I know in Australia alone it sold, I think, 200,000 copies or something like that. It's really about what happened. Defiant is more of a memoir. It's more about sort of peeling back the layers and more the emotional context of what happened around those events. So it's deeper, and it's, of course, I'm older and more mature and able to, I was able to write about things that I thought were very personal back then that I wasn't ready to share. So it's more raw, and I think it's absolutely my best book.
And I'm sure that there is so many more to come. And congratulations on having the screen. Oh my gosh, I just can't believe it. Having a movie now coming out. I can't wait. Don't tell me who it is. I want to have the element of surprise to see who.
I don't know who it is yet, but I know a few names have been thrown around, but we have to first the screenplay. It takes everything in Hollywood. It's such a big deal, over here. I mean, it takes years. So the screenplay will probably take a good year to write. Well, I mean, the writer that we have lined up she's just wonderful. So I'm really excited about that. It's taken 2 years to find her.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations. And I know that you've got
you.
not just that happening, but you've also got this fantastic School of Resilience. I love the title, first of all, the School of Resilience. Now, why are we...
Actually, it's not. It's the School for Resilience.
For Resilience.
Which is actually, you know what? I'll tell you the funny story. School of Resilience was taken. This is years ago when I got the name, the URL. And I thought, rats, I wanted that. And then I saw that School for Resilience was open, and I went, that's way better because it's actually building resilience. It's not of, it's for. And so it's to help people, to be for them, to build. So I just love it. I love the name.
Another universal message. See, one door closes, the right one opens. But why are we hearing so much about resilience? I know you really own this space, but I know we're hearing resilience for children, for people in corporate land. What is resilience, and why is it becoming such an important part of our development?
Yeah, well, of course, right now, it's the one quality that we all need. And I think people don't think about what they need. I mean, the whole idea is to, when times are easy, you don't need it. It's when times are tough that you really need it. For a lot of people, they're sort of chasing their tails now and realizing, wow, this is something that I should have been thinking of earlier. And I think a lot of us think of resilience as bouncing back. And I've always professed that it's more about bouncing forward. It's about post-traumatic growth. It's about, building upon, the challenges in life. And it's not about avoiding adversity or loss, as I say. It's about tapping into our innate resilience to create a life worth living, because we all are innately resilient. The fact that we're here says we're resilient. And if people look back against, over their life and think of a time when they were struggling with something, maybe that it's now, maybe that time is now, but if they look back and go, wow, I never thought I'd get through that breakup or that job loss or whatever it was, but I did. So therefore you are resilient. You just have to recognize the tools that you used at the time and the strengths that you had to get through whatever challenge you're going through now. And as I said, life is a repeating pattern. That's the hero's journey.
You talk about 5 pillars of resilience. Now, I would love just to talk go a bit deeper on 2 of them if we can. And one of them is we are never alone and always connected. And the second one is this too shall pass. And they feel like they're written for exactly what we're facing right now. But also there are so many times where, loneliness is on the increase. We're seeing increasing rates of depression and feeling of isolation, but also that sense that I'm never going to get through this. Can you tell us a little bit more about these 2? Because I think they're really important for now. And one of the things I don't like is when people just try to get through something. And I know you're the same. How do we use these 2 pillars to move beyond what we're through now so that we can actually flourish and do the things we want beyond the hardship?
Yeah. Well, these pillars, or let's think of them as foundations of resilience. And of course, you're never alone. I learned that in the Spina Award, and in my TED talk, that's represented in the story of the straws. And when we realize that we're all connected, I mean, there's so much work done on, the benefits of our altruism, for example. And I think if we can realize that everyone's in this, everyone is struggling. Okay, no one has a perfect life. No one is happy all the time. No one's, we look at people and think, oh, if only I had their life. They're probably looking at someone else's life and thinking the same thing. So, there's a great benefit in recognizing that everyone's suffering. And, when we get out of that, when we hear that and we realize that everyone's going through something, we immediately, that whole idea of connection and compassion. When we give to other people and we step out of our small story and help other people, we know that it actually benefits us. There's a lot of studies that show that when you exhibit an altruistic act, you're the one that benefits. And there's studies. One study that I've written about, they gave university students money, and one group had to go and spend it on themselves, in hedonistic activities, and one group had to go and spend it on other people. And as it turned out, the ones that acted altruistically, that spent their money helping other people, had greater benefits of well-being. So, that's the whole idea behind that, realizing that we're all connected, and that everything we do affects everybody else. And, if you go out and give an act of kindness, you'll be surprised at how much, how it changes your brain. I mean, that's what resilience is actually about. It's about rewiring and changing our brains. And of course, this too shall pass. I mean, what a great message in these times, realizing that, it's the idea behind Buddhism is that impermanence, that everything is temporary, that nothing lasts. And that, if we just stay with it and be really present with our experience, whatever that is, it will pass. Better times will come. This virus will be over. So since we're in it, let's just accept that we're in it and try to sort of savor and embrace the gifts in this time, because there are many.
It was something I've been feeling recently is almost like a concern that it's going to finish soon. And I know that sounds really silly because, of course, there is so much hardship people are facing right now. But I'm starting to question: have I used the time really well? Have I used it well enough? Have I actually been given this gift where I needed to maximize it, or is this a period of time where we do really need to just go, let's just be in this together. Let's face what we need to face and let's get through this. But I love this where you're saying this too shall pass, because it just gives this sense of it's going to all be okay.
Yeah, it will. And, this is where we are. This is the only moment that we have. We have no idea. We're just not very good with uncertainty. We just, we panic and we stress about it. And, this is a great time to be really present. For a lot of people, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, I'm really, really enjoying this time with my family. And, people that have obviously been disconnected from that value of, being with family and loved ones. So, if you look at everything that you've been through in life, we know that nothing lasts. And I've just been writing about that wonderful story about, the ring, the man that, the king that goes and sends his humble servant out to find a ring. And the story, he comes back with a ring that that has this too shall pass. I've actually got a ring with that actually engraved on it.
Wow.
At that point we realize that, the truth of this is that the good times, it sort of keeps us humble, knowing that the good times will pass, but also gives us hope that whatever struggles we have will also pass. That's just the nature of the universe. The nature of everything is temporary.
And are these the thoughts that people should be having, or that you recommend, or that you see have worked with people when they're in that struggle, when they're in that really dark time of not knowing what to do? Can these be almost like mantras for them to go, hey, don't worry, this too shall pass? Or is it things where people, is it beyond that? Is it something where it's a lot harder to grasp, or can it be as simple as just telling yourself that?
Oh, no, I think, having a practice of meditation or stillness, whether that's, for a lot of people that maybe can't go outside now, maybe that's in a room, having a quiet space. For people that can go outside, maybe it's going for a walk, getting into nature if you can. But I think, the answers, I think we've all got the answers. Everything intuitively is inside us, but, we just have to silence the voice that keeps, that nagging voice that just doesn't stop, to really hear what it is in our heart that we need to hear. And, to really sort of tap into that, our soul and who we are.
Janine, how much does spirituality play in your life?
Oh, well, it's funny because someone asked me the other day, they said, oh, but you're very spiritual. I said, no, everyone's spiritual. We're all spirit. We're all, what is it? Someone, Deepak Chopra's co-founder of the Chopra Center, used to say we're all God in drag, and which I love. That whole idea of we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So in that sense, none of us are our bodies. So it's just how we connect with that essence of who we are. Now, whether it's through what you call God or the universe or a greater power or whatever you call it, and however you connect with that, that's really that's an individual thing. My husband David, for him being spiritual is walking off into the mountains on his own for a day or two. That to him is an incredibly spiritual experience. For me, it's just, you can experience great reverence when you're watching a sunset or listening to music or just reading something, that sort of just cracks open your heart. And I think possibly that what we're all experiencing right now is an opportunity to hear something deeper, that deeper voice within ourselves.
You mentioned Deepak Chopra, and he said a comment about you, that you move people to find the real potential of their lives. And that's a pretty big call. That's a pretty good endorsement there, Janine. How do people know that they're not living their potential? How do people know that this is not what I should be doing with my life, or this feels out of balance?
I think the clearest sign for that is when people are experiencing a sort of an angst or anxiety about an unrestlessness about their life. And I think for a lot of us, we live lives that we think we're supposed to live. The life that we think our parents told us we're supposed to live, or our partner, or our teachers. And I think we're out of alignment with, the life we're meant to be living. I truly believe that we come into this body with, as Carolyn May says, a sacred contract, something we're meant to be doing. And I think when we're not living that, we're not living that truth, we don't have goals with soul, I think that we know, we're depressed, we're anxious, we're scared, we're all of those things. And I'm not saying that's the only reason for, depression, for example. I've been there too. I think it really takes a lot of courage to decide that, I'm not going to live my life like this anymore. I'm going to, step off and I'm going to go in. And that's scary.
Yeah, I think they're goals with soul. I love that. Goals with soul. It just it puts a real depth and meaning to things that sometimes goals can feel a little bit superficial if they're not driven with something internally. I love that. Janine, one of the things I love, of course, is working with children. As an occupational therapist, I work with children. That is a part of my soul work that I do. How much are we seeing the importance of resilience in developing resilience in children, and what are some of the things that parents can do to help foster skills of resilience in their children?
Well, I've got three. I'm a mother of three, and I've got three incredibly resilient children. And I think they're resilient because they've seen me fall over so many times and get back up. And, research shows that resilience, for example, is a cognitive skill that can be learned. So we can learn to be resilient, which is great for parents. And the work of C.R. Snyder, who has hope theory, he says that we learn to be hopeful thinkers, which is a component of resilience, through watching those people we're closest to. So that's a great thing for parents out there thinking, well, how do I teach my kids to be resilient? Well, you cultivate that skill in yourself because your kids are watching you very closely. And if they're learning from the people closest to them, they're learning from you. So cultivate those skills in yourself, cultivate the skill of resilience. Your kids are watching very closely. That's how we teach it to our kids. You don't teach them by telling them. You teach them by being that.
And sometimes you can even feel their eyes on you, can't you?
They're watching.
They're watching.
Oh, yeah, they're watching very, very closely.
Now, before we finish up, you live, as we spoke about earlier, in a cabin in Wyoming near the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Was this a choice for you to simplify your life, or is this a yearning to get back to the snow?
It's been a great lesson. I came here, I was guided here, through meeting my husband. It was just the craziest thing. For example, my last name's Shepherd. This farm we live in now, it's called Black Sheep Farm. So I'm a bit of black sheep. All of the signs just brought me here, and this is where I was meant to be. And part of the reason I wrote my book here, and there's a lot of stillness, silence, and solitude here, which hasn't always been easy for me, but it's really been one of my greatest lessons in life about slowing down and just being at peace with being here. And it's been just an extraordinary journey. Everything, every part of my life. I mean, sometimes I've been brought here screaming and kicking by the universe, but I know now I've had enough, experience to know now, okay, let go and trust.
And you can almost craft it by the sounds of what you've done, even though you're an elite athlete who has achieved so much in her life. You've written 6 books, you travel the world constantly, but yet amongst all of this, somehow you've still been able to find stillness. And has that been a daily practice for you? Or has that been something where you've gone, okay, universe, I'm here and I'm ready to listen?
Yeah. Well, I had a very sort of strict meditation practice for many, many years. When I moved here and I was moving all over the place, I had to be really flexible with that because, sometimes I was sleeping in a hotel, sometimes in a cabin, someone's on someone's lounge, or, it was just, there was no routine in life. So I've become very good at just trying to be present in everyday experiences in life. And, David and I have a practice every morning. We wake up, we have our coffee together, and we have a practice of grace where we tell each other what we're thankful for. And, it's a great way to start the day. And we know that gratitude changes your brain. So, just trying to inject those moments of grace and reverence into life has been really important.
Well, Janine Shepherd, very, very sadly, our time is coming to a close, but I'm going to use this very brief moment we have just to be thankful for everything who you are, what you have done, for the impact you had on my life as a very young girl, and not just that, but the impact that you've had on so many people's lives that you would never even know about, people who have listened to you, who have seen you speak. I'm so thankful that you chose to come back when you chose to come back into this life. But whatever this next chapter is, we are so excited to watch it unfold. And I will definitely be the first there at that movie to watch this very exciting chapter of Janine.
I will let you know.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks,
for
Angela.
On the Your Life podcast. And yes, all the best for the most beautiful and exciting chapter to come.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and thank you for your work in the world, because it's really important. I mean, we all, right now, this is your time, right? You're teaching people how to be, still, and I think that's what the world needs right now.
Thank you, Janine Shepherd. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Take
Angela.
care. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. To find more ways to slow down and simplify your life, follow the Your Life podcast on Spotify and iTunes. And let's connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. Just look for Angela Lockwood. Don't forget, it's your life. You choose how to live it.